Welcome to the First Baptist on Fifth podcast. I'm Olivia Blake, Ministry and Communications Assistant and host of the new podcast series, Ministry is Calling. Throughout this series, I will be inviting folks from our church to share stories of how they've answered this call as we celebrate and reflect on the various ways people engage in ministry work. Today, I'm joined by Reverend Mary Kaylor, beloved member and associate pastor of newcomers, young adults, and community engagement.
Yes.
Welcome, Mary.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So for anyone who may not know you or may not know you as in depth as they do from seeing you on a Sunday morning, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I have been in Winston-Salem since, the fall of 2018.
Okay.
Came from Memphis, Tennessee, where I was serving on a church staff there. Came and worked for a nonprofit for a little bit, and then joined the staff in 2024.
Okay.
I'll get my numbers right. Have been a member since Easter of 2019. Love First on Fifth. Love Winston-Salem. Married to Joey, who is a horticulturist at Ronalda Gardens. Mm-hmm. And we have a 21-month-old named Sylvie, who is a mess, and we love her so much.
Wonderful. That's a nice little snapshot of who you are and your family. I'm curious, before Winston-Salem, obviously, that's been home for 8 years now. And all of us that know you well, have seen, you tapped in as a member and then now a staff member here. Mm-hmm. But I'm curious, what about you before Winston?
Yeah. So I went to college in Buies Creek, North Carolina, Campbell, thinking that I was going to be a pharmacist, and got to the first day of chemistry and realized that it was not for me. So studied accounting at Campbell and graduated with my bachelor's of accounting and a master's degree, and graduated in 2008 in the middle of a recession and finding a job really hard. And so I worked as an admissions counselor for the university, which I loved, getting to work with students and talking with them about their dreams and their hopes. And at the same time found myself having the same conversation with myself, like, what is next, given this kind of roadblock that had presented itself with trying to find a job in the financial realm. And in the midst of that, through a series of conversations, felt like I needed to go to seminary. And we'll touch on this later. Dad didn't know what that meant, and I didn't know what I would do with that. But went to seminary, and then from there have experience in missions work in India, and then congregational ministry in Memphis, and then nonprofit church relations, church support, before coming back on staff in a congregation.
Wonderful. Awesome. So kind of with that background, and obviously sounds like bounced around and kind of where you thought you would go with your life, and then feeling this call to do seminary, but not really sure what you would do with it. Mm-hmm. I'm curious, all of this kind of tug and pull in different directions, how you may answer this next question. So most people view ministry work as a calling or a vocation rather than simply as a career or a job that you would do 9 to 5. It's a bigger thing than that. Mm-hmm. So does that sentiment of it being a calling resonate with you?
It does. And I knew that I was supposed to go to seminary. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what life would look like after that. It was as I found myself working with high school students, navigating their next big life step, I was doing the same thing and explored lots of different things. I think my parents got sick of me saying, well, what about blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And just one day, the idea of seminary kind of presented itself, had conversations, and it was the only thing that felt right. Mm. And that's kind of been how every chapter of my life has unfolded. It's what feels right.
Yeah.
And so looking back, I can see how the pieces of my life have come together for me to be in this place doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I think some of my colleagues and friends in seminary very clearly could say, I knew when I went to youth camp in 10th grade, I
Yeah.
felt God calling me to be this type of minister or to do this type of work.
Yeah.
And that hasn't been my experience.
Yeah.
But as I look back and see the different pieces, the experiences that I've had, the opportunities that I've had, I do see where I am and what I'm doing
Yeah.
as a calling.
Yeah.
Just not one that was as clear, I
Yeah.
think, as some people have experienced it.
Absolutely. And I think, still having that gut feeling and knowing that it was that in the moment, even if it wasn't as articulate as you need some that have, more of an auditory voice telling them that this is where they're meant to be.
That would be so much easier.
I know it would be, wouldn't it? I wish I could just ring up God and be like, hey, where do you see me going?
I know. What do you want me to do?
Yeah. What's my 10-year plan? Go ahead and tell me. Thanks. But still, looking back and can seeing all the little pebbles or strings that brought you to where you are now is wonderful. So you touched on kind of this lack of clarity around the moment of going, what about seminary? And then what do I do with this degree? Can you talk a little bit more about, that moment of, first discussing the idea of seminary and then also where you kind of grappled with later after graduating, doing the more the nonprofit or congregational side and kind of where has that internal discussion and possibly external discussion led you?
I think when seminary kind of entered the realm of possibility, I kind of didn't want to pay attention to that. I wanted to ignore that.
Yeah.
And my mom reminded me when I was a junior in high school, my church had youth-led Sunday worship,
Yeah.
which I think a lot of churches do, which I think is wonderful to give youth opportunity and worship leadership. And I had made a deal with one of my friends who was a year older than me. If she would be the youth Sunday pastor her junior year, I would do it my junior year.
Okay.
Really not thinking that through. And so then it's my junior year and our pastor comes to me and says, okay, so it's your turn. And after that Sunday, my mom reminded me that she said, I think you're going to work in a church. And at that point in my life, like that was the last thing I was thinking about and just, didn't think anything of it. And so when I was exploring attending seminary, she reminded me of that.
Yeah.
But I had this like, no, I don't think that's right.
Oh,
I think
okay,
I need to look at becoming a teacher.
Yeah.
I think I need to maybe I'm and I always had this feeling of like God is calling me in my life to do
Yeah.
It's always been God has a purpose for me and what is that
Absolutely.
purpose? And so, struggling running away from
Yeah.
and as I went through the list of all of the other things, it was just sort of like, okay,
Yeah.
this is
what we keep circling back to.
what keeps coming back. This is what keeps bringing that sense of peace that nothing else is bringing. And that was, I mean, honestly, it was a little hard for me to accept that. And I haven't really explored why, which would probably be helpful to why was it hard to come into that? But it was the only thing that gave me a sense of peace and made me feel like, okay, this is the next step.
Yeah. That's wonderful. So the sense of peace, obviously, with making that big decision, then the secondary decision that comes with now, what do I do with it?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So when I thought going into seminary, I'll do nonprofit work.
Yeah.
That's what I kind of had felt like that would be my concentration. And took the opportunity to take several different types of electives in seminary, nonprofit specific type ones, but then also Christian education, pastoral care, lots of different, anything that sounded interesting to me.
Yeah.
I tried to get into the class.
Absolutely.
Because I think I still had this, like, I'm just not really sure what the next step is after this, which I think was great because again, I've never experienced that, like, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm interested in lots of different things.
Yeah.
I can see myself doing lots of different things. I could see myself being lots of different places. And so it was just, I think seminary allowed me to kind of explore all of those areas. And as graduation approached, I still wasn't sure what I was going to do.
Yeah.
And the opportunity presented itself to spend a year abroad working with CBF field personnel. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Because that, again, in the moment was the only thing that felt like it made sense, which looking back on it didn't make sense because I had never left the country. I didn't have a passport, like all of these things. Yeah. And I'm agreeing to go live my life in a different country for a year.
Yeah.
And it was a wonderful experience and taught me that full-time mission work is not for me. And so kind of had I find myself in these seasons of life every now and then of like, what is the next, not floundering, but just kind of like feeling that movement. Yeah. And what is the next thing?
Absolutely.
And so coming back from India, where do I go? What do I do? And congregational ministry kept presenting itself.
Yeah.
People would say, hey, this church is hiring, or I think you might enjoy this or this type of position. And so again, it was just what made sense at that time.
Yeah. That's wonderful. And just kind of trusting the process, you know what I mean, and journey set before you rather than, I guess, challenging or, you know what I mean, fighting against it as much as you did with, you know what I mean, the start of that journey, you know what I mean, taking that big leap for seminary, then kind of opened up this new chapter of going, I'm kind of trusting the process a little bit more. Well, it's bringing peace rather than, you know what I mean, fighting tooth and nail on where you're getting pulled and called to. So that's wonderful. So I am curious, we've obviously kind of touched on this a little bit in just the discussion so far, but with your Master's of Divinity, how has that degree specifically, and possibly even your other degrees that you hold, shaped your decision and how you do the work you do, specifically in congregational work, but also within your role here, focusing primarily on the engagement, young adults, newcomers?
I think one of the big things about seminary, it's less, I don't want to say it that way. One of the biggest learnings for seminary for me was the challenge of why do you believe what you believe and kind of tearing that down and having to go through like a deconstruction process of what I had been raised with up until that point. And then helping me rebuild kind of brick by brick my foundation and my faith and being able to articulate, no, I believe this because of this. And I think that's the biggest piece, is just the opportunity to really own and hold on tight to, this is what I believe. And to be able to articulate what that is and why that is. And I think specifically working with our young adults, just naturally in the stage of life that our young adults find themselves, right out of college, right out of grad school, kind of making that first big life decision,
Absolutely.
making those first adult decisions. I think for most of people your age, it is this first moment of like, okay, who am I? What do I believe? Whatever. Not necessarily faith-wise, but just like,
where do I stand as an individual?
Where do I stand in the world? What's my purpose? What are my values? Like all of the questions of who am I as a person? And I think having done that on a faith level, has given me tools to help our young adults kind of walk through that, not only on a faith level, because I think a lot of our young adults that are here and finding us are asking those, like,
Very similar
wrestling with
questions.
those faith questions and like, what do I believe? Why do I believe that? This is what I learned growing up, or this is what I've heard. And, you know, wrestling with all of that. And so having to do that on a personal level, I think has given me a good toolbox for working with our young adults as kind of figuring out identity.
Yeah, I love that. Wonderful. So curious, looking back, obviously, on your journey through ministry, you know, both nonprofit and particularly congregational with where you are now, how do you think you've most lived into that calling of ministry work? And kind of where do you see yourself continuing to do so in the years to come?
I think it's just paying attention to that. Is what I'm doing bring that sense of peace that has led me to where I am?
Yeah.
And if not, where do I need to shift my focus?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just continuing to dive into that and where opportunities arise, pursuing where that feels right.
And I think that learning how to, and this gets to your last question.
Yeah.
Of what would you tell, spoiler, last question, what would you tell your younger self?
Yes.
And I think it is like, don't feel like you have to have it figured out. It is like, take the step and have the faith that what you're doing is right.
Yeah.
It's hard, you know, people have their 5-year plans, 10-year plans.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I want to be here. It makes sense. I'm happy. Everything is, you know, this is bringing me peace.
Yeah.
But we don't know what the seasons of our lives hold
For sure.
and what the next chapters are.
Yeah.
And so I think remaining open to the moving of the Spirit.
Yeah.
And being open to the surprises. I never would have thought, growing up in New Bern, I never would have thought I would have lived abroad, that I would have moved to a city where I knew nobody whatsoever and started a whole life.
Yeah. Whole family.
Yeah. I think just the remaining open to the way that God moves in your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And being open to the surprises.
Yeah. So I hear the open to God's plan, open to the surprises. But to reiterate that last question of if you could tell younger self one thing, what was that first piece of, taking that step? Like, if you could give us a concise phrase for people to hold on to, how would you?
I think don't feel like you have to have it figured out.
Yeah. There we go. Perfect.
Yeah. Don't feel like you have to have the concrete 5-year, 10-year, 15-year plan.
Just knowing a direction rather than every step along the way.
And trusting yourself and trusting God.
Absolutely.
Sometimes as cheesy as that feels.
But also it's true, because how many times do we ignore it?
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sitting down today, sharing a little bit of your story. I could ask you so many questions.
We could take over.
Oh, yeah. With our closer dynamic as young adult pastor to a young adult. So many things that you could pick your brain about, but we'll stop us there. And thank you so, so much for sharing parts of your story today with us. And thank you all for listening. It has been a pleasure, and we will see you again shortly.
Bye.